Hello everyone, Deanna here, and thanks so much for being here. So today's video is going to be a book review, and the book I'm reviewing is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E.Schwab. I'm going to give my brief summary of this book. Addie LaRue, in a fit of desperation, made an inescapable deal causing her to wander the world as little more than a ghost. She has now wandered the earth for over 300 years, with no one ever remembering her. The only entity that remembers is the devil who tricked her in a deal. That is, until one day someone finally sees her. But not just that, someone remembers her. How is this possible? Is this more trickery, or after 300 years has Addie finally found what she's been yearning for her whole life? With the devil on her heels, how does she keep this secret safe? And does the man who remembers her have a secret of his own? So I've definitely heard lots and lots of things about this book. This was one that blew up beyond just V.E.Schwab's kind of typical readers. I'm fairly familiar with V.E.Schwab, having read quite a few of her books over the past year or so. I've read things like Gallant that came out recently, like City of Bones, or no, Tunnel of Bones, City of Ghosts, I believe it's called. She has that series as well that I've read those two from that series. And I have read her archived series as well, which was a duology. So I have read, as well as The Near Witch. That was her first ever book and my first ever introduction to V.E.Schwab. So I've read quite a few of her books. I haven't read some of the really popular ones. Like I haven't read her Vicious series yet, and I hadn't read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue until now. And it is definitely different type of tone than her usual writing. Usually her writing style, I mean, she deals a lot with kind of gothic themes a lot. She writes a lot about, you know, supernatural kind of elements, a lot of sometimes more ghostly like events. There is that throughout a lot of her writing that I've read so far. It's very similar in that way, and she has a very distinct writing style that you can just read and you're very familiar that this is V.E.Schwab. This one was a bit different though, and that's why I think it branched out beyond her usual readers, because this one was more of, in some ways, a bit of a love story. Not entirely, but there was elements definitely of love throughout this, and there is more of a bit of that romantic theme. And I want to say this one does have a bit more character driven than plot driven. I think the rest of her stories do have more of a plot. The characters are still great, and I still love the characters that she's written in other books, but in other books I would say there is some type of plot that we're following. This is more of like a character piece because it expands such a long time period, and the plot is more of, in regards to, it's kind of more of what's happening to the character, and it's very much what she's experiencing and what she's going through, having lived 300 years and that type of thing. So it's not anything that we're really waiting for a big ending reveal or anything, because she has literally lived a pretty mundane life for 300 years because she can't be remembered. Anyone that she meets instantly forgets her as soon as they're gone away from her. So she has not really made any great connections that can remember her. Even though she might feel very connected to them, they don't feel connected to her. They might feel like they should, but they have no memories of her. So she's just constantly living in a very invisible kind of way and having this life that is just kind of passing by, but she doesn't want to give it up though, because she's still at least experiencing things, and she does not want this devil to win. She is very much in this kind of battle of wills with this devil as well. But overall, I did enjoy the book. I found it very enjoyable. I almost kind of prefer some of her other writings, I would feel, but I still really enjoyed this one. I still enjoyed Addie, though at times it was almost sad how much she couldn't really do anything. It was kind of like she was living just the same life over and over again, constantly being forgotten, not being able to make a mark anywhere, not even be able to like have a home or a life or anything really. She's just kind of like a ghost living through motions to keep her going from one moment to the next. So in that way, she's kind of almost a sad character, but I did enjoy still seeing what was going on and seeing kind of things that were happening with her. And I enjoyed the character that finally eventually remembers her, which would be Henry, the other main character that we meet. We get a bit of his backstory as well, and we come to wonder, why does he remember Addie, and what's so unique about him that he's able to remember Addie, and what kind of transpires between them as a result. So I found that really interesting, and I knew there was going to be someone that remembered her, and I just wanted to know, like, how is this going to play out? How is she going to find out that he does remember her? How are they going to like cross paths? So I was very much looking forward to that, to see kind of that, because I feel like once she connected with him, that's really when the story kind of more took off in ways, because now it was this race almost to figure out, well, who is he, why does he know her, how does he know her, and kind of trying to figure out what is going on between them. So I really did feel that, and like maybe we were actually moving towards something when there was that connection between them. And then there was times that I really related with some of Henry's struggles and some of the things that he was experiencing and things that he was thinking about, that sometimes that can be a bit relatable when you're feeling like maybe you're not living up to something that you thought that you really built up in your head, and it doesn't really play out the way, and you feel like there's always something missing. So I did connect a little bit with Henry on that too, and really empathized with Henry about just feeling kind of out of place sometimes, or feeling like you're not quite what other people expected, but you always want to be. So I very much related to that. And I did do a journal entry as well, which I kept it within the theme of November, because I read this in November. So we've got my November cover page, so it's very much that same kind of theme. And I saw this character here, this drawing, and it did very much remind me of Addie, because Addie does have a love for art and literature, even though it takes her a while to learn how to read, but she does end up being able to pick up books. And I think books very much played a part in this story a lot, because that's how she kind of met Henry and things. So I think it was fitting, and then I thought it was fitting that her face is hidden so we can't even see who she is, because that was very much what Addie LaRue was dealing with all the time. And then I liked from another craft package that I have this craft paper that had some of the different cities kind of mentioned. It had, like, you know, the 1902, and Addie lived through that. She lived for like 300 years, so she lived through a lot. So I thought that was kind of fun to put that. And Paris is mentioned a lot in this book, because she has this big goal as a child to go to Paris, and that's where a lot of the book takes place, in the beginning of her journey. So I thought that it just really fit to have that there. And then I used my brush pen to do some hand lettering for The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and then I just had some of my thoughts in regards to the book, what I thought about the book, maybe some of my feelings, and I did give this book 5 stars because overall I felt like even though the writing style was different from her usual, it was still an enjoyable writing style. It was still a writing style that I was able to read fairly easily. It didn't feel like super easy, but it wasn't completely flowy. There were some metaphors and things like that throughout it, but it wasn't anything that was too hard to get through or too frustrating to get through. It was very nicely written in that way, and I enjoyed it in regards to keeping me engaged, keeping me kind of wondering what's going on between Addie. I think what I wanted to see more of was actually interactions between Addie and the devil, and I wanted to know a little bit more about this mysterious, like, cloaked in darkness kind of being that made this deal with her, and why maybe she was so special and things like that. I would have loved to kind of see a little bit more of that throughout this whole journey that she has, and I would have loved to see some more of the important historical events kind of. There's a couple of them that are mentioned here and there, but sometimes it's almost like they were kind of glossed over a bit, or it was she's there, but we're not really getting a lot of why she's there or what's happening or anything, and she stays very much, even though she's a individual who can travel the whole world, because she's lived for 300 years and nobody even remembers her when she's gone, she doesn't do much with it. She doesn't become anyone that's really super remarkable, and maybe she can't leave imprints or anything, but she starts to learn how she can leave her influence in places, and you think that maybe she would try to use that in some different ways. I know it's mentioned she was like a spy for a little bit, but again, that's glossed over so quickly during the World War II that we don't really get any of what actually happened or what she did or anything like that. It was just really, really quick and left me feeling like the only places she ever really traveled was Paris and New York. And if you have 300 years and this freedom of being invisible pretty much, would you not want to go to every corner of the earth? So that was kind of a little disappointing in that regard. But other than that, I thought that it was a really fun story. I had a lot of fun with it, and I love the message of kind of just being careful of what you wish for, and maybe just being able to explore things, but also enjoying and being grateful for some of what you do have as well. I felt like that kind of came through a little bit, and there is a very open-ended ending in this one, and it makes us kind of wonder like what's gonna happen to Addie and what's happening with Henry and things like that. What happens with all of it. It did kind of make me question. It also just made me question about events throughout history and what it would be like to live for 300 years and how much has the world changed in that time. And it's changed a lot. So it's a lot of things to go through and a lot of different advances in technology and policies and the world. So that would be very, very interesting to live throughout those years, and so much could have been explored, but I don't feel like we did that as much. We more just traveled with Addie and her feelings of loss throughout this world, and never really being satisfied with what she has. But yeah, even with some of that going on and some of the slight critiques that I could have about how much more the story could be explored, it still was really enjoyable, and it was still something that I completely devoured within, a couple days or so. And it was one that I had a lot of fun reading. It was one that it made me kind of almost sad that it ended. Like I would have kept reading and kept going with this adventure. But I also have this very pretty version, which is like a special edition with I Remember You, which is just so important to have someone to remember you. And I mean, this again kind of got me thinking about memories and things like that, and how precious they can be sometimes, and how sad it is when maybe we don't have the best of memories, or we're not able to hold on to some of the memories that we want to hold on to, and just how important it is to connect with others and make those, have the ability to connect with people and make an impact and be someone that others can remember in a fond way. Like, that is one of the things that was kind of sad to read, was just how much she would really like someone and really connect with them, and then they'd walk away or they'd leave, or the morning would come and they would completely forget her, and that was really sad to read about. But I was definitely hooked just from the first few paragraphs of this one. She wakes up in someone else's bed, and I know there's a lot of time jumping back and forth, and sometimes that was interesting, but sometimes it was frustrating because it was like, no, we'll just get back to the present day, I just want to see this, or could this have been written like chronological? But of course it was a choice to have it kind of broken up, because it was connecting different things that are happening in the past to the present, and it's, you know, leaving some mystery here and there of what's kind of going on, especially when it came to what was happening between her and the being demon devil like thing that took her soul, essentially, or wants her soul for this deal that she has made with the being. So that we couldn't have it all completely unfold chronologically, because I think it kind of did sometimes make a bit of an impact of when they were connecting or how they were connecting. But in other ways it was kind of like, I just wanted to see what happened from the moment that she had all this happen to her to when she made this deal to present day. Like, give me all those events that happened. So that was a little bit of like, oh, that would have been so fun, but it didn't make it unenjoyable. It didn't make it something where I didn't like the book because of that. It just was like, oh, I wonder how that would have been. And then we have, of course, the consolation that is mentioned time and time again. I did not include it in my journal entry. I know it's mentioned a lot, and it's something that's like hit on that, like, she has these freckles that look like a constellation, but it was kind of more of just, I don't know, it's not like it really impacted anything. I mean, is that, you know, what caused her to be this, you know, person that made this deal? Like, no, it was just some kind of feature of hers that didn't really make her or break her. It wasn't like with Harry Potter's scar, where that's there because it's this place where all of this magic went into him and it changed him and it has a connection with like Voldemort. No, it's nothing like physical feature like that where it is actually significant. It was just like something that was mentioned, and it was just like, oh, okay, she's got, if anything, sometimes it was hard for me to picture them. So it was just like, oh, okay. But maybe I just don't get really, really detailed when I picture characters like that. So it was like, oh, okay, sure. All right, she's got freckles. But yeah. I do like this edition though. It's really pretty. It's really pretty with like I'm not sure if it's picking up, but it's kind of this pretty sparkly lettering that it's got. But yeah, I don't know if I have much else to say about this book. I found it, like I said, enjoyable. I loved reading it throughout my birthday. It was It was a fun read. It was one of the only reads that I really have planned for this month. I got a couple more that I remembered about that I will pick up throughout the month too, but honestly, November is just kind of my chill month. That's why you might have noticed that I'm not going to be posting as much in November, if you notice that at all. I'm just going to be posting only possibly once a week instead of usually my twice a week that I've been doing, because November is all about just chilling out, enjoying the month, relaxing, trying not to overcommit to anything or put too much stress or pressure on anything. I'm just taking it as it comes. So you just keep an eye out and I'll post videos when I post videos. Other than that, I think that is it for this review. It was still a 5-star read, but I am biased because I do like V.E.Schwab, so that might come into play, and that I already have read a lot of her books and enjoy a lot of her books, so that might influence my thoughts and review of this story. But I feel like even if you didn't really know her, you would still enjoy it, and maybe even people that don't like her other books might like this because of how different it is. So I think it could kind of go either way on what you thought of the book, but overall I think you would have a fairly pleasant experience with it if you like character-driven stories, if you're kind of intrigued by a plot, as much of a plot it is, of a girl who essentially sells her soul and lives for 300 years. Now again, go into that as that's not really like going to be completely explored. She's not going to live like a million lives or anything like that, because if anything, she barely can make any kind of impact on anything, and that's more of the struggle, is how does she live when she can't make a mark, and when she is wrestling with the temptation to just say, you know what, fine, this is too much for me and I'd rather just end it, kind of thing. Like it's kind of more of that, of her own internal struggles and her own kind of internal voice on what's kind of going on in her world. But I'm gonna leave that there. So I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars, and if you've read it, let me know. If you're interested, go ahead and let me know if you've read any other V.E. Schwabs. Go ahead and write that in the comments below. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here. Take care of yourselves, and you will see me next time. Bye!